collected by the PTA ushers. The PTA ushers are up there. Questions from the audience must include the name of the questioner and your address. Questions may not be of a personal nature. While a question may be directed to a single candidate, every candidate will have the opportunity to answer those questions. The PTA and the moderator will group together questions that are of a similar nature. Some of that has been done for questions that have been submitted already through email. Due to the amount of candidates and the length of time of this forum, we will not be able to ask every single question, but we'll do our best to include as many questions as possible. If you would like to ask a question, raise your hand and a PTA usher will give you an index card. Okay, please turn off your cell phones. Don't applaud until the end. After the forum, there may be some time to chat with the candidates if you have any specific questions. We request that you do not video the event. The PTA is live streaming this, and it will be on the Tuckahoe Schools website, and they will also be recording this, and it will be available on the local public access channel. Okay, let's get started. This is for you, Mr. Fiore, your opening statement.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Anthony Fiore, Jr. I'm 56 and a lifelong resident of the village of Tuckahoe and Tuckahoe School District. I attended Tuckahoe Schools, William Cottle, and Tuckahoe High School, class of '79. My volunteer activities and other memberships include a volunteer captain in the Waverly Engine Company, Eastchester Fire District. I'm a member of the Westchester Volunteers Firemen's Association, former member of Tuckahoe Auxiliary Police. I'm a member of Knights of Columbus, number 2108. I'm a member of Tuckahoe Senior Citizens Committee, a member of Tuckahoe History Committee. I'm also an usher for Assumption of Our Lady. My current employment is with the Lakeland Central School District. I'm a senior custodian in a total of 20 and a half years. I went through the ranks of a bus driver, floater, part-time custodian, full-time bus driver custodian, then went to building custodian, then currently, like I said, senior custodian at Van Cortlandville Elementary School in Mohegan Lake. We have one of 5 elementaries in our district. I'm running for the Tuckahoe Board of Education to be more involved with the community. My years working with the Lakeland Central School District in maintenance department, I could bring to the board what a building needs or could use, able to listen to teachers and administrators and handle the situation. I will, with the rest of the board and superintendent, to keep taxes down from the state cap, which is a big issue for the district. Keeping residents in the school district because residents like the schools. And this is a learning process. I don't have any agenda. I just want to learn and just get involved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Licio?
Good evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Michelle Licio, and I've served on the Board of Education for the past 6 years. My husband, Michael, and I have lived in this district for 20 years and have 3 children, all of whom have received their education here at Tuckahoe from kindergarten through 12th grade. When I first ran for the board 6 years ago, I felt our district was at a crossroads. Our fiscal house was not in order, and we were going down an unsustainable path that was jeopardizing the quality of our educational offerings. My record for fiscal responsibility is clear. In 5 budget years since being on the board, the average tax levy increase was 1.47%, and our fund balance now maintains a healthy reserve. This was accomplished by scrutinizing every expenditure and negotiating contracts that are sustainable, yet recognize the value of those that work with our children every day. With the implementation of our 5-year strategic plan as our roadmap, we have enhanced our student offerings in academics, arts, and athletics, and most notably our Technology for All initiative, which puts a Chromebook or iPad in the hands of every student from kindergarten through 12th grade, earning us recognition as a leader throughout Westchester County. Some may ask why I am seeking re-election after 6 years of service and having my youngest child graduate this June. My answer is simple. 1, I have never been on this board for just my children or have any personal agenda. I have been a voice to advocate for all of the children of this district and want to continue to do the work to enhance their academic experience and success. And 2, I believe I have the experience that is desperately needed to move this district forward. We have made great progress over my time on the board, but there is still work to be done. I can assure you that as a mother and a taxpayer, I understand your concerns and believe with your support it is important to maintain my experience on this board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Tate.
Okay, good evening, all of you. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Cynthia Tate. I have been a resident of Bronxville Manor for the past 11 years. I have 2 children in the Tuckahoe schools, one which is in 5th grade and the other in 8th. Many of you may have seen me in many events taking pictures, and I go to every school event there is, whether my children are part of it or they're not. And I recently had been chosen to be on the committee, hiring committee, and also for the planning and performance leadership team for the middle school, which I consider a great honor. However, all of these things, I do feel that my almost 30 years in education is the main reason that I need to tell you who I'm all about. I have been a bus driver, I have been a teacher's aide, I have been a special ed and general ed teacher, I have been a literacy coach, and most recently, I am an assistant principal of the New York City Hospital Schools program, providing instruction for hospitalized children. I consider these my biggest assets and why I should be a contributing member of the board. I will always have a special place in my heart for the years that I had spent teaching, from pre-K with children of all disabilities. It was very difficult when I had to make the decision to become an assistant principal, but I thought that I could touch the lives of many more by giving back what I had to teachers, and definitely more than I could ever do in a single classroom. I feel my past experiences make me a great choice for the board.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kaysen.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Peter Casson. My family and I have been in this neighborhood for about 12 years now. My wife and I have 3 children in the district, 1 at each of the schools. Professionally, I'm a special agent with the FBI. I've been with the FBI for 17 years. Currently work cybercrime. Previous to the FBI, I was an officer in the Coast Guard for about 5 years. I'm running for the board for 2 main reasons, 2 main motivating reasons. One is the pending capital improvement project that I know that this board is going to play a critical role in, and the decisions that are made with regards to that project are decisions that we as a community are going to live with for 20 years plus, and they're going to be very, very important in terms of how much taxes we pay and the quality of our school system and our property values. So but I won't speak too much about that because I know that's going to probably come up a lot in this debate. So I'll reserve my time for later there. The second motivating factor is to see if I can push the district to do more in way of preparing our children for the high-tech economy and market they're going to be dealing with when they're older. If you can just think for a minute, 20 years down the line, the year 2037, when our high school seniors are 38, 39, right in the prime of their careers, and our kindergartners and first graders are 25, 26, just getting into the job market. Think about what the world's going to look like then. And a lot of experts think that by then, 40% of the market is going to be controlled by artificial intelligence. Robots are going to be ubiquitous. Cars are going to be 100% driven, self-driven. So come back to today, do we think that we're preparing our kids enough for that type of market economy? I think we can do more here. I know the district's done a lot in the last couple of years in terms of technology, but more of that's been in terms of tools and applications to use in teaching. I'd like to see us get more involved in the under-the-hood type of instruction of how computers and engineering works. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
That's your time. Thank you.
Thanks, I'm sorry. I had more to say.
Mrs. Nealis.
My name is Danielle Nealis, and I'm running to retain my seat on the Board of Education. We have lived in Tuckahoe for 11 years and have 2 children in the district, one in the middle school and one in the high school. I've been actively involved in the school system since day one. I volunteer for many events and have been on the executive board of the PTA for 6 years. I was president of the PTA for 2 years and was successful in that tenure. As I completed my term as president, this seat became available on the board because someone stepped down. Rather than say, I finished my term, is up with the PTA and I need a break, I decided that the next role I should volunteer for was this seat. It is a challenging role, one that requires commitment and tough decisions, both of which I have proven I'm capable of following through on. I'm very excited for the chance to retain my seat. I'm uniquely qualified for this role as I have over 21 years in education. I'm certified in general education through 6th grade, special education, K to 12, and school district administration. I know curriculum, policy, and school law. And if I don't know the answer to a question, I have the resources to get an accurate answer. I was also a union rep for several years, so I know the ins and outs of contracts. Being on the board since July, I've learned that decisions are based in policy. I have learned that in the face of tough decisions, I'm able to make them. I want what is best for all our children, but at the same time, I am a taxpayer, and I understand that always needs to be part of the decision-making process. It is a humbling privilege to serve the community in this capacity. 10 months was not long enough to have volunteered. There are many things that have come up, and I want to see them through to completion, first and foremost being the bond. This needs to be finalized and secured so that we have the best accommodations for our children as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Nealis. Mr. Lee.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Bobby Lee. We moved up here in 2005. My wife and I have 4 children in the district, 2 in high school, 2 in Cottle, next year 1 in middle school. I work for Verizon. I install Fios in the Bronx. I'm a union member. I've been there for 21 years. I understand contract also. My passion is the children. My passion is to make sure that all the children in our district are looked after. I just think that more could be done. Obviously, I didn't have anything prepared because I'm usually speaking off the cuff anyway in a microphone. So I think that what we could do for our children is a little bit more like Mr. Casson said. Although the teachers in our district and the teachers union in our district go above and beyond for all of our kids, I think there's always room for improvement. We could go the extra mile. Also, I would like to see the inner workings of the board. I think that what we're doing with this bond, or what we can do or can't do with this bond, is important. Like Mr. Caston and Danielle said, that going forward, this is going to affect us for the next 20 years, and taxpayers and people who own homes in this community. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. I would ask you all to make sure the microphone is close so that everyone can hear you. Okay. Now we're going to start with our first questions. This question is from the PTA Executive Board. And this question goes to Mrs. Licio. And it goes to all of you, starting with Ms. Licio. What is an area that you feel needs the most attention in our district? In other words, curriculum, student life, athletics, professional development, building issues. Which one of those do you feel needs the most attention?
Okay. When I came on the board 6 years ago, we were at a point where we did not have a roadmap for the future. So what we needed to accomplish year one was we did a needs assessment. And it's a tough thing to do because you're a little vulnerable. You're putting it out there to the community, to all the stakeholders. What are we doing really well and what's not working so good? So right after we accomplished that, a whole year's worth of work, we did start our the planning of our 5-year strategic plan. Right now, we are coming to the end of that. So in answer to the question, what needs to be done, I would say all of those things, because we need to really start again and do an assessment of where we are, where we're doing really well, and where we're lacking. To touch on some of those things, 5 years ago, we just started with an implementation of our Common Core. Technology was not even a piece of what it is today. So we really need to look at every single one of those aspects again. And I would say day one of next year, we need to do another needs assessment, get into the community, speak with our stakeholders, speak with our parents, have more town hall meetings, probably off mic, where we're in a small, intimate settings and people can open up and share with us. Because we cannot work in a bubble. We need to be in the community, and we need to know what the needs and the concerns are of the community.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Licio. Mrs. Tate, would you like me to read the question again? Do you have it?
No, that's okay. I agree a lot with Michelle in that there are probably many areas that are a main focus, but for me, I guess from what I see on the other end, I'm not in the school all the time, but I have seen that curriculum and academics, for me, are at the forefront. I have noticed we have moved ahead in some areas, like within the area of math and putting in new programs, the new program Writing Revolution and those things. But I do know that I see a lot of times my kids are not coming home with updated books, and I know that we're moving into the way of technology, but sometimes those fail as well. So I would love to see a bigger push, social studies, science, whether it be curricula books or whether it be materials. I would love to see, I know that needs assessments were done, but in a needs assessment moving forward, it would be nice to see, our classrooms, like bring them into the, the 21st century. I'm sure a lot of the classrooms could use some things. But also, it's definitely important to involve parents, teachers, administrators in those needs assessment and get out there, whether it be a survey, it could be an anonymous survey, because we have a lot of people who don't respond. So that would be nice to see what does everyone else think is a need. But for me, always at the forefront, I always do look at curriculum first, but I can never forget about the importance of the arts and the sports as well. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Casson.
Thank you. Well, I think the most obvious need is space, but that's being addressed by the capital project, so we'll talk about that later, I guess. But the next one would be to echo the remarks I made in my opening statement in my mind, which is that extra push for technology education. And again, just to clarify what I mean by that, I know the school district's done a very good job, this last board in particular, in getting more technology tools in our teachers and in our kids' hands. I'm talking more about the education of computer science. I know it's difficult to do that. It's very hard because these kids are already in a very packed academic schedule. But I know there are other school districts out there in the country that are integrating this in very smart ways. Things like having children design apps that encompass mathematics and arts and websites and things of that nature. Again, very hard to do. I'm not saying this is an easy thing to do. I just think looking forward into what these kids are going to be dealing with in the market that they're going to encounter, I just think the earlier we can get them involved in that, the better. So it's not a need from a sense that we're deficient as a district. I think we're actually probably up to par in this area to our contemporaries, but I think this is an area as a small school that we can actually excel. We can actually take it to the next level and distinguish ourselves from other districts by being better. So I guess need is kind of a subjective word, but that's where I see it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Casson. Mrs. Neely?
Thank you. One thing that needs attention is the constant changing curriculum. It's not something that necessarily is an issue, but it is something that's constantly changing, and everybody needs to keep on top of that. We need to stay current with supplies, materials, technology. We need to increase science, math, and technology opportunities for our students. Science Fun Day with the PTA has been such a big hit and has grown exponentially in the last few years. I think that some kids don't even realize how much they like science until they're there, and they don't even know that they're doing science. So to have more offerings available to kind of pique their interest would be a great thing. We need space, obviously. That is our biggest issue right now. There's no room. There's no room for anyone. We came here to give our children a certain education, and they're kind of being crowded out. We need to continue to have open communications between the district and the community, all the stakeholders, taxpayers, people with children, business owners. Everyone needs to be a part of the decision-making. I think we've done a good job of improving the quality of the communication that's gone out, but I think we still need to do more in that area. I also think we need to increase partnerships with community businesses, with local school districts. I think we would be able to do so much more if we just teamed up with some of the local school districts and colleges in the area. There are so many great things that they have to offer, and I'm not sure that we take advantage of all of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Nealis. Mr. Lee.
Yes, I also, excuse me, sorry. I also think that the biggest issue is space. Unfortunately, a lot of our Cottle School students are crowded into their classrooms. The population is getting bigger every year. It's not going to stop. People hear about our district. We're a good community. We're a nice, small community. Unfortunately, our school is also a small school. We do need space. We do need to expand somehow. Unfortunately, you know, the kids are getting crowded out, like Danielle said. Like Mr. Casson said, though, that'll probably be discussed a little bit later in the, if you know, the bond subject comes up. It's something that we should definitely look into. Like I said, I have two daughters in Cottle, and as of now, the very, very overcrowded in classrooms. Very overcrowded in classrooms. So we should really look into a way that we could get more classrooms or find a way to find more space for our classrooms and our kids in the schools. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Fiore.
I would also say space. Make this auditorium bigger the way it used to be. Get the administration offices out of here, put them on the side. Build that addition for more classrooms and then the Cottle School. We just need the space. It's way overcrowded here. And get input from more from the community, get input from the custodians here, what they really, really need. That's all I can say is space. Space is what you need. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fiore. This is an opportunity. Does anybody want a 30-second rebuttal to anything anyone said? Okay. Here's the next question, and we're going to start with you, Mrs. Tate. Okay, this was also from the PTA Council. What do you see as the pros and cons of the current capital improvement proposal? Which proposition makes more sense for the district, Proposition 1 or Proposition 2?
Well, my position, yes, we do need space. So I am in agreement with, and I don't know if I agree totally with one or the other. So what I agree with is that we need space at Cottle, and we need to build classrooms up. I am in total agreement for that. I see that as a huge need. I see that we need to obviously fix our gyms, the existing gyms we have. We need to fix our fields. So in regards to do I agree with one proposition or the other, I don't know if I agree with either of them wholesale. I mean, I agree that definitely for the class, to make those 8 classroom spaces are definitely needed, to repair the gyms, auditoriums, and the fields are a must. I'm not so sure I agree with one of the other that are on the table at this moment.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Casson.
Thank you. I think Proposition 1 is a no-brainer. I think it's got to be done. I think the current school board did a very good job putting all those needed items into that proposition, which makes it, I think, very easy for the voter. It's all the things that really we can't, it's not up for debate, the things that are in that proposition. Proposition 2, however, I do have an issue with. I don't agree with the sandwiching or the marrying of the 110 Ridge plan with the proposal to build an exterior gym across the street. I think, I don't like the gym idea, and maybe we'll get into that a little more later, but I also think it's wrong to put those two together in one proposition because we're forcing the electorate to make one decision on both when neither one of them have anything to do with the other. In other words, one doesn't make the other one happen or not happen. From binge watching all the recent town hall meetings, or school board meetings, excuse me, I can see there's a lot of support, and I'm one of them, for the part of Prop 1 that gives us more space in this auditorium. That's a definite need. The gym, not so much, and I think by putting the gym, the exterior gym, I mean, not the renovation of the Cottle gym, that needs to be done. That's in Prop 1. But to sandwich that with the 110 Ridge, you're forcing people to decide on something that's very popular, which is the auditorium, with the gym, which I think is a mistake. So that I have a problem with. I think those should be parsed out and separated.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Casson. Mrs. Neely.
What do I want for Tuckahoe? This is a tough question, as this has been an ongoing discussion for the past several months that I've been a part of the board. Obviously, I want the best of everything for our students, our scholars, to have classrooms that are not overcrowded, to have pre-K back in the school district, to increase science and technology with STEAM classrooms, that teachers would be able to do hands-on experiments and technology with the children. I want the best for our athletes. I want the best for our fine and performing arts students. I mean, I look at our string program, where it was and where it is now, and I want to tell people that don't even have kids to come and watch, but there's no room for them. So that's an issue. I want that, but it's not up to me. It's a community decision. That was the rationale behind splitting the propositions in two. I hear what people are saying about the district offices and the gym being tied together. But again, if you want my personal opinion, that's going to be different from that of a board member, because I am not going to make a decision for the community. I'm going to let everyone decide for themselves. After May 16th, it will probably be a lot easier to fine-tune both propositions, because we will know if we have acquired the property at 110 Ridge. Whoever's on the board at that point, that's when the fine-tuning is going to start. So I look forward to the vote and seeing where we stand so that we can start really moving forward with this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Nealis. Mr. Lee?
Well, I agree with Mr. Casson that the current board has done an excellent job at putting this together, putting the propositions together. I do think we need more space. I don't think what am I trying to say? I don't think that adding more burden to the taxpayer is a good idea. I think that what we should do is find a way to a happy medium. Unfortunately, I know that's a tough thing for the board members. I think that Proposition 1 and Proposition 2, unfortunately, they're too far apart. A lot of people are voting for, a lot of people are behind Proposition 1 because they don't want the gym. A lot of people are behind Proposition 2 because they think we need more room. As a board member, if I was elected to be a board member, I think that I could, I think that would be the best time for me to make my decision. Unfortunately, I didn't make I don't have a decision. I think that the propositions that we have in front of us could use a little fine-tuning. I think that wasting the taxpayers' money is something that I'm not prepared to do, and as a taxpayer, I don't want to see my taxes go up. I find it hard to vote for something that's going to make me pay more money, to be totally honest with you. So, I mean, unfortunately, I'm not a board member as of yet, but if I was elected to the board, that'd be a tough decision, a very, very tough decision. You know, I'd like to see more room. I'd like to see a huge gym. I'd like to see 10 gyms for our kids in our community. I'd like to see as much for the kids as possible, but unfortunately, I know that's not realistic. So, to be totally honest with you, I think that the propositions, unfortunately, they got to be a little bit of a fine-tuning, unfortunately.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you.
Mr. Fiore.
Okay, the current board did a good job on both propositions, from what I see on the reruns on TV. It's going to be a little tough sell on the community to try to get both. From what hear from the outside, from residents. But we'll see what happens May 16th with the House. See what happens there. If it does go through, the administration offices will probably be there. They don't have to. It'll be there. We'll make it there. The gym part. I heard two different stories. You know, some people want them, some people don't. You know, my decision, if I'm on the board, it could be fine-tuned. Probably fine-tuned. And I'll just wait after the 16th. But I just listen to what I see, what I hear on TV. I haven't seen anything in paper yet. I just hear what's from the board. That's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fury. Mrs. Licio.
Okay, I think the question was proposed, what are the pros and cons of Proposition 1 and Proposition 2? Last Wednesday night's workshop was the first time that the board presented a two-proposition proposal. I think it's really important to let everyone know at this point, nothing has been finalized. We are still working on it. And it is the first time we put into the community this idea of two proposals and what they would represent and the scope of the work that would be in each of those two proposals. Let's talk first about Proposition 1. Proposition 1 is about the needs. It's what we know we need right now. It gives us 8 classrooms in Cottle, expanded Cottle cafeteria, expanded Cottle gym, expanded Cottle library, STEAM room for Cottle, additional office space, security. So those are the things we have identified that we know we need. And for me, that's what we should be focusing on. This talk about the gym has caused quite a stir, but it's really taking the attention away of focusing on what we actually need. And the most important thing that is needed right now at Cottle School are classrooms. The classrooms are, as we have everyone here has already said, are overcrowded. We have had to take away our pre-K program next year. We have students who are getting services in very small confining areas. We are not providing the best that we can. So we need to say, what is it that we need? We need to make sure that Proposition 1 is a clear, concise plan that this community understands and this community will buy into. And that's going to have to mean that all of our stakeholders can get on board with that. Now, Proposition 2, where things get a little confusing is, as Pete said, Proposition 2 was presented with the expansion of this auditorium and moving the district's office off-site, whether that be 110 Ridge Street or another place. Oh, no, I could talk all on this.
You'll have a chance.
Okay.
Does anybody would like a rebuttal to anything that was said?
I'd just like to say one thing. I do think we should not be focusing on one proposition at this time. I think we really need to know what's going to happen on May 16th, and I think at that point, we really need to clearly define both of those plans and roll it out to the community. I don't think that it's right now, this is what we need and we're going to move on. I'm not sure that that's our decision to make. I feel like that's a decision for the global community, not just 5 individuals.
Okay, thank you. Anybody?
Actually, I have a comment.
You have 30 seconds.
The one thing I'll say to that, though, is, again, part of my problem with the Proposition 2 proposal, I know it's been a new proposal, I know it's not been agreed upon, but by putting that out there, I wonder if it's going to affect the vote on the 110 Ridge, because if folks think that what we do at 110 Ridge is connected to the idea of the exterior gym, which is the way it's being proposed now, people may vote that way come May 16th on the House. So that's sort of my concern there too. And I know that's, you know, we can't change that now, but that's, you know, the 110 Ridge vote could be affected by this Proposition 2 proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Casson. Anybody else? Okay. Here's our next question, and this one is going to start off with Mr. Casson.
Yes. Thank you.
This is from the PTA also. What is your knowledge of the 2017 classroom, and what issues do you believe our district needs to address in its academic program and offerings? What academic changes or improvements would you recommend for our district?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again in the beginning?
Sure. What is your knowledge of the 2017 classroom, and what issues do you believe our district needs to address in its academic program and offerings? What academic changes or improvements would you recommend for the district?
Well, when you say knowledge 2017, I'm not actually quite sure what that means. I'll be honest. I don't know if that's a program or if that's what you're referring to there. But what I will say is, in terms of academic needs, I personally don't really have any recommendations there. In my opinion, our kids are challenged enough academically with Common Core and all the adjustments being made there. So I don't see anything there or have any suggestions there. I have heard from the community, though, and people that I've spoken to, that there is room for improvement in terms of special ed, in terms of how we deal with our special needs children. That's one area that in academics that we certainly can improve on. So that's what I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Casey. Mrs. Nealis.
Well, curriculum is the heart of teaching and learning. Students rise to expectations, so we need to set the bar high at the onset. As teachers, it is a challenge to keep up with federal and state standards because they are constantly changing. But that is the job, to stay one step ahead of the game and teach our students with high-quality materials. So we need to continue to make sure that we have everything that our students need to be successful with the current standards as they are now. Continuing teacher professional development and having on-site experts is critical to arming our educators with the tools they'll need to make sure that your child is successful. We have taken great strides in that area with the incorporation of a mapping program that allows the teachers to see what topics are going to be taught when, so that they can all be on the same page and the kids are completely immersed in it. We need to continue to provide our students with current technology so that they can face higher education in today's job market.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Nealis. Mr. Lee?
My knowledge of the classroom, I don't know exactly what that means. I think that the classroom size obviously is too small, but other than that, academically, I think that our teachers and our staff are doing an excellent job. I think the teachers that we have here go above and beyond for our children with the parent portal and emails all the time. I think they do an excellent job. Obviously, room for improvement. IEP, 504, special education, get more specialists in, maybe bring a couple more specialists, math specialists, reading specialists for our children. I think that they're doing an excellent job, the teachers. Obviously, they could use more help, more teachers, more specialists would be great, but always room for improvement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Fiore?
I don't know too much about the curriculum part. I'm more the custodian part. But the teachers are doing a very excellent, very, very good job for what they have. That's all I got to say. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fiore. Mrs. Licio, can you move the mic a little bit closer?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. I think it's important to talk about what the board's role is when it comes to these types of decisions in regarding academics and curriculum. And really, our most important role is in order to support the recommendations that are brought to us from our superintendent, which come up from our building principals, in order to address all the needs, the academic needs and the needs that are in the classroom that are the concerns right now. I do think it might be time at this point to maybe relook at our reorganizational structure, because 5 years ago, I believe it was the time that we actually eliminated the role of the Director of Special Education and created the role of an Assistant Superintendent. And that job at the time was defined for curriculum, to be the Director of Curriculum Instruction and also Special Education. And when you fast forward now 5 years, we could go back and I could sit here probably all night and talk about how things were and what it was like 5 years ago and all the changes we've made. But I think really what the concerns of the parents are today is where are we now and who's addressing what's going on right now. And I really think that a real look at the organizational chart that currently exists, and it might be time, and fortunately I believe we have the resources because we have been fiscally responsible, that we can now invest in moving special education and giving it the attention that it really so deserves. These are our neediest students, and we really do need to be able to ensure that we are servicing to the best of our ability for each and every student. On the other hand, for the position of curriculum instruction, the 5 years ago, that responsibility has grown tremendously with all the changes and demands in our curriculum and also all the new initiatives that we have brought in with technology, which is now also coming in. I'm not going to do good at this.
That's
sorry.
fine, don't worry, there's plenty of time. Thank you very much. Mrs. Tate?
Okay, I guess in regards to the 2017 classroom, I mean, obviously, like everyone has said up here, space is an issue, so whatever we could do to improve that would be great. I mean, I would love to see, I mean, my son oh my God, he's in 8th grade, he's been here since kindergarten, and I don't know if many of the classrooms have ever been, like, has there been new furniture, new books, new material? I feel like we could use a little work in that area and give the students better things and the teachers to work with. In regards to the academic needs, I've always felt like a little bit of lacking in the areas of social studies and science, so I'd love to see more push in those areas, and technology as well. Now, I myself haven't had experience with the special ed department, but I've heard from many people that that is an area, like everyone is saying up here, that could use a little of attention. I mean, I have a special ed background, so that's near and dear to my heart, and when I hear things that students are not supported the way they should be, that my heart goes out to those parents and to those students. So with that said, that's a big part. Also within the area of something more, and I think, Danielle, you mentioned it, like they do have the curriculum mapping, and it would be great for the parents to have access to that as well, to sort of see what is my child learning this month, this week. So sort of to stay on target and just to know what those expectations are.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Tate. Does anybody request a rebuttal? Okay, very good. Let's move on to our next question. This is also a PTA question. What don't you like about the current 5-year strategic plan? And we're starting with you, Mrs. Nealis.
I am lost my... The 5-year plan is coming to an end. The 5-year strategic plan is coming to an end.
Can you speak into the microphone?
The 5-year plan is coming to an end. So, of course, I'm completely blacking out and left that. Technology in the 5-year plan, we have been able to add on Chromebooks and or iPads for every student in the district. We have been able to, incorporating our technology plan with that, we have been able to include an intercom system with our phones that will bring up security in the district. The problem with the 5-year plan is that it's 5 years old, probably 8 years old, because there was a needs assessment. So at this point, it is time to reevaluate every area of academics, technology, bullying, everything that we need to talk about in this district needs to be updated, and now is the time for us to get surveys out to parents, to community members, to see what we think at this point we're going to need, what we want, what needs to change, and how we can set a goal to make that happen. The most important thing probably is to set a goal, figure out how we can attain it, and take the steps to accomplish that.
Thank you. Mr. Lee?
I agree. I think that a needs assessment is in place. The 5-year plan is coming to an end, as Michelle stated earlier. Although I don't think that we should change much. I mean, obviously, we need to assess what we have going on now and to improve going forward, to add a little bit, like Mr. Casson said, a little bit of technology. But the 5-year plan that's coming to an end is it was a good plan. It kept the kids engaged. The Chromebooks and the technology that they have and worked with for the past 5 years was great. But now it's time to move forward, a little bit more every time, a little bit more every 5 years would be great. A needs assessment has to be started, and I think that the next 5-year plan that the board puts forward would, if it's as long as it's ever expanding and keep going forward, that would be great. That'd be a great idea.
Okay, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Lee. Mr. Fiore?
I haven't read the 5-year plan, but from what I hear from everybody, it was very, very good. That's all I got to say about that.
Okay. Mrs. Licio?
Sure, I'm actually very proud of the 5-year plan. The 5-year plan breaks down curriculum, technology, finance, student life, special education, and for the first time, we really had a roadmap where we knew where we wanted to be and align that with our budgeting. So if you just looked at this past budget presentation, it literally lines up our expenses with our matching up what our needs are in our strategic plan. If we didn't have that, then we wouldn't know the direction we were going. I will give you one example, and that would be staff development. When I first came on the board 5 years ago, this is a very easy number to remember, the budget for staff development was 0. And if you look at this year's strategic plan, this year's budget, because it is an important part of our strategic plan, there is money in the budget for staff development, specifically our writing revolution. So I think that if you have the plan, you know where we're going, we have a direction, it's more comprehensive, people can understand this. I think it also, when it lines up with our spending and our expenditures, people understand where their money is being spent. I think it's something to be proud of. But now we need, I said it in the first question that was asked, we need to start all over again. Because as Cynthia said, the needs that we had 5 years ago are not the needs of today. And so it's a lot of work. It is a huge undertaking. We are very fortunate that our administrators put this plan together themselves 5 years ago. I'm sure they will do it again as successfully. It's going into the community, starting with the needs assessment, taking that feedback, and starting all over again. But the plan that's in place, the plan that we've worked out for the last 5 years, I am very proud of.
Thank you. Mrs. Tate?
I would have to actually agree too. I mean, when this first went into play, I was very excited because in the city schools, we do this on a yearly basis. We do these plans. And I was hoping that Tuckahoe would do the same, but I think they did a great job, and we have gotten so many things, like with these programs like Writing Revolutions, all the technology, and things like that. I think we need to look at it and see what have we achieved, sort of check that off, and then do we still want to continue that? Is it something worthwhile continuing to the next plan? And what are some new things that we want to sort of work on, and what direction we're going in? A lot of these things that we set up here would be great to be part of this plan. But like other people have said as well, yes, we have to do a needs assessment, and not just survey needs assessment of what the administrators, teachers, whatever, like what students, bring it out to the community, and also community members that may not attend things. So we want to make sure that we're hitting everywhere so that it is a plan that really does affect, everyone. So, I mean, I thought it was a great job what they did. I mean, the next one that comes around, it would be nice to see even like sort of deadlines. Oh, well, this goal we'd like to meet, maybe not in 5 years, maybe in a year. So sometimes I think, oh, it would be nice, some of the things a little quicker, but I think overall it was an excellent job.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Casson?
Yeah, I'll echo that. The five-year plan is very impressive, really well detailed, and as Michelle says, it provided an excellent roadmap for what the goals are and where the school wanted to go. And I have to also say it's great that along the way, it keeps getting looked at and reevaluated, which is excellent. The only thing I'll say, though, as far as the next five-year plan, what can be done better, in the five-year plan, I don't know if who's seen it, but it breaks down each category on a form and with a bunch of different categories. And one of the categories is evidence of completion, which basically shows if it's been completed. I think in some areas we could do a better job defining matrices to make sure that we are meeting the goals. In some areas it's pretty clear cut, and in some areas I found some of the evidence of completion matrices were sort of kind of vanilla and fluffy. And one evidence of that would be the special ed aspect of it, because there's a lot of goals here about the implementation of RTI and so forth. And if, according to the plan, it looks like we met all the goals, but yet there's still a lot of folks out there that aren't happy with the special ed program. So the only thing I would say going forward with the next plan is maybe to do a little better job honing in on our evidence of completion, what we use to decide if we've actually met our goals or are meeting our goals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Casson. Does anybody request a rebuttal?
Could I just add something there?
Sure.
Our last board meeting, Dr. McDonald did an update on our strategic plan for technology. This is something we have done throughout the year, take a piece of the plan and show the community, explain where we are, our updates. The plan does have deadlines, what we will do year one, what we have done year two, what we have done year three. The last presentation on was on technology. It was amazing. She showed a snap from a classroom, and we as a board and as a community were able to see what is actually happening in the classroom with technology. And this is what needs to be done at every meeting for 5 minutes so that the community can see what's actually happening in our classrooms.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to say something? Okay. Our next question is from the community. We're going to start with you, Mr. Fiore. What effect do you think the bond proposal will have on home property values and student learning outcomes? So it's like a two-part question.
Can you repeat that again?
Okay. What effect do you think the bond proposal will have on home property values and student learning outcomes?
Home property values, let's see, I would think it would, I would say it would go up, because you'll have better buildings, the kids will learn more, you have excellent facilities, and the kids will learn better. A better environment. You probably have a little smaller classroom size, better learning. I think it would be great. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Mrs. Licio?
Okay, if anyone who might be looking for a home in this area knows that home values are through the roof right now. For Tuckahoe schools, the market in general is very good, but this area, it's extremely good. Inventory is low, which means people aren't leaving, they're happy. And we have had an increase in our enrollment. We have attracted new families here, and now we need to deliver on that. They're coming to us because they've heard good things about Tuckahoe, and now we have to make sure that we provide what has attracted them here. So the bond proposal is definitely going to have a big effect on our home values, because we need to make sure that we can deliver on what has attracted everyone here. What will that do to our learning outcomes? Well, students will perform better when they're not in overcrowded classrooms, and we're not providing the facilities that we need to ensure a secure, healthy learning environment. So they go hand in hand, but there will be, when we say home values, yes, is there going to be a tax implication? There will be. But what we need to clearly put out to the community is what is the value in that. How much is this going to cost? It needs to be very clear, and what we will be getting in return. And I think when the community understands the return on their money, they will gladly give for what they know that our students need, because in return then, their property values will increase.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Licio. Mrs. Tate?
Okay, I guess it's hard to say, depending on what goes through. Obviously, what attracted me to come here was what was so many years ago, these small class sizes, small school, it was like a little family thing. And yes, I think we need to bring it back to that, and adding those classroom spaces will definitely do that, and I think we'll keep families here and attract more, because I think that is a very big selling point, and obviously will keep the values of homes up. It will definitely increase student outcomes by having smaller class sizes. I mean, I'm sure every teacher would agree on that as well. Like to have less kids, you're going to get better outcomes, and it is much more effective for students. Yeah, property taxes will go up, like Michelle said, but I think, yes, if you convince people that we have this little gem here that people want to come to and no one wants to leave, I think people would buy into it.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Tate. Mr. Kaysen?
Yeah, I mean, not too much to add there because it's been pretty much very well said by Michelle and Cynthia, but I guess I'll frame it a different way. What would happen to property values if we didn't pass the bond? Because the work that needs to be done through that bond, it needs to be done, and if it doesn't get done, then our schools are gonna continue to suffer in terms of space and in terms of being attractive to home buyers. So if the bond proposal should increase home values and it improve student learning, the two are tied together because the school will have more space, and which is much needed and won't be overcrowded anymore. So I guess I would be afraid as to what would happen if we didn't do it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Casson. Okay, Ms. Nealis?
I think that it would be a no-brainer that our home values will go up if we did pass the Proposition 1. Right now, we need classrooms, we need space. We need to, whether we have a new freestanding gym or we update our current gym, that needs to be done. People want into Tuckahoe now. They're going to want in even more so when they see that things are happening, things are moving and shaking, that class sizes are now going back to what they should have been. You know, we moved here because the class sizes were 16 and 17, and it's not the case anymore. My two kids are in 2 of the 3 largest grades in the district. It's been that way from the onset. It's kind of a disappointment. However, despite all the restrictions, the teachers and the staff in the buildings do an excellent job with the kids, but I imagine that the outcomes and the learning standards would rise if they had so much more available to them. So I'm really in favor of that, because to give them that opportunity, when kids play a sport, when they play an instrument, when they participate in a steady after-school program, their grades go up. Their involvement in the school community goes up. This isn't a school where kids come in and then they go home. They come in and they stay here. And we want them to stay here. We want to keep them busy with good stuff that's going on. And, you know, adding STEAM classrooms, possibly building performing arts spaces would be great for those other children that may not be so studious. So yes, I think home values will definitely improve with the bond.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Nealis. Mr. Lee?
I agree. Home values will go up with passing of the bond, and the children will benefit greatly with the smaller classes. I think the two are hand in hand. I think that passing the bond and getting, whether it be Proposition 1 or Proposition 2, regardless, we need more space for the kids, and the kids will benefit because we're going to need more teachers. We're going to need to have more people brought in to take care of these kids. When we moved up here 12 years ago, again, it was small classrooms. We liked what we saw. Community, small schools district. We like that, but the population's growing. By leaps and bounds, the population's growing. There's 29, 30 kids in a classroom right now. They're all getting pushed out. It's tough. It's tough for teachers. It's tough for the aides. It's tough, but you know they do an excellent job. So yes, I agree. The passing one of the proposals of the bond will bring the home values up, and will help the kids benefit in academics.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Lee. So I have a question from the audience over here. Okay, and we're going to start with you, Mrs. Licio. How will you strengthen the foreign language program, including attracting and retaining qualified teachers?
Good question. It actually has been, in terms of having to attract and maintain good teachers. When it's a
Move the mic closer.
Oh, I'm sorry. For specialized instruction, as in the languages, it has been a challenge for us. Over the last couple of years, they have been specific reasons why. Teachers leaving at unexpectedly because they've moved or had received jobs in another district last minute. So we find ourselves looking in August for a replacement teacher for a specialized language. It is a challenge, and it has been a challenge. I think that this is something that really falls under what I had addressed earlier when I say that more attention needs to be for our assistant superintendent, who I absolutely think is fantastic and have the utmost respect for, but I think we cannot have our administrator setting up to fail. Her job is really curriculum and instruction, and it should be for her to answer that question. I, as a board member, that's not my specialty, but we've put people in place who need to do that job, and we need to support that role for her and for him and for all of our administrators. So I believe that is something that should be addressed. I have said for years I would like to see foreign languages start at much earlier ages in the elementary school. We should be having instructing Spanish very early on. All foreign languages, we know that children of younger ages pick it up much sooner, and that is something that we should be working on. That's where we should maybe be making our investments, and that is really for the board to support those recommendations that come to us. What we need to do is be in a fiscal position that we can say yes to those things when they come to us.
Thank you. Mrs. Tate?
Well, the foreign language program is new to me because my child is only in his second year of it, so I wasn't aware that teachers, it was difficult keeping teachers here. But from what I see, I don't know if it's what they have to work with, because the material that, again, I'm going to go back to material. You got to give teachers something to work with, and what I see is a bunch of photocopies this high. So I don't know if it's lack of material, which makes it a challenge for them to teach. I'm not so sure. And again, I think that really isn't the job of the board to sort of hash that out, but there are people in place to actually do that. I agree with Michelle, starting at a very young age with the foreign languages would be a great thing. Maybe the teachers would want to stay if the students were more interested in it. I don't know. But I know that my daughter was involved at a young age. I think it was in first and second grade where they did have a program at Cottle. And I was very excited about it. So it would be great to see something like that come back.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Tate. Mr. Casson?
Yeah, myself included, I also didn't know there was an issue with keeping foreign language teachers on staff. So without not knowing that, I don't know what the issues are, why it is that they're not staying. So again, not to sound like I'm just repeating what's already been said, but I agree we'd have to get feedback from our administrators as to what's happening and why that's happening, and then provide the support that's needed to stop that issue. So.
Okay, Mrs. Nealis?
I have personal experience with the foreign language program because my 9th grader is now in her 3rd year of Spanish with a different teacher. So the consistency is not there for certain. can't answer to why people don't come here, why we can't get a quality Spanish teacher in the state of New York who's both a native language speaker and an educator. I really just don't know. I do, though, think that maybe one way to add to our foreign language department is to add another language. Maybe we can entice some people to come here to do something that's unique. I know that it's only Spanish and Italian as far as I know, and I feel like I've heard talk of people wanting to take Latin and wanting to take French and wanting to take Mandarin Chinese. So maybe we can look at partnering with the local districts to offer AP classes that are like a virtual class, like an online class for those kids that want to take a different language. And maybe that would be a way to strengthen the program for our own children.
Mr. Lee?
Mr. Lee.
As to why the teachers are leaving, I don't think anybody can answer that question. I don't know that anybody has the correct answer or as to why people are leaving, coming and going as fast as they do. I also think that maybe starting them a little bit younger is a good idea. These kids see shows on TV or shows that they've been watching since they were younger, even before school, and they already know different languages, but just listening to the TV shows that they have been. I think that might be a good idea, but as for the foreign language, I think that the teachers that we have here are doing a great job with the ones with the kids that are here, and the teachers that are here, that they're doing a good job. Unfortunately, the teachers that are gone, I mean, they come here for a year or however long, and then they leave. I can't answer that. I don't know why, but the teachers that we have here that are teaching the foreign language are doing a great job. Hopefully, maybe we could expand and get the younger kids, the kids at Cottle, started on foreign language also. Maybe start them a little sooner. Maybe a good idea.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Fiore?
This is another subject I probably can't answer, but find out from the administrators why the teachers are leaving. Something keep them here. Maybe an incentive to keep them here. But it's like I heard a lot of good things here tonight. That you should start at a younger age in Cottle, whatever language is out there, to try to find the right teacher for the right language, and just find out why they're leaving. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fiore. The next question starts with you, Mrs. Tate. This is from a member of the audience. As a board member, would you explore collaborating with Eastchester and Bronxville schools to expand offerings to our students and possibly make more efficient use of our tax dollars?
I love that question. I've always thought, coming from a big system like New York City, I was kind of amazed that there is actually one superintendent for this very small school. So I've always thought, why not, use instead of being so top-heavy, even though I'm an administrator, use those resources where we can give back more to the kids. So yes, I think collaborating with other schools to give kids what we may not have or give them what they may not have. I know for sports there's always been issues where I think Bronxville can't have enough kids for a baseball team, so how great is that? Or sharing academics. Like I know that I've heard a lot of talk, I'm not there yet, but with the AP courses. So if they're offering somewhere else, I think by, yes, pooling our resources, it would be a phenomenal way to go. And I would love to, to see, I don't know if they do it already, but the administrators from all of those, school districts come together and sort of make those things happen. So I think it's a great idea.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Casson.
Yeah, I couldn't think of any reason why it wouldn't be a good idea, and especially considering how small of a school district we are, certainly we would benefit a lot from leveraging some of the other resources that the other school districts have. And it would be a great fit, obviously, because there's a lot of overlap socially amongst the different school districts, Bronxville and Eastchester. In terms of outside the school, there's a lot of overlap. So it would I can't imagine why that wouldn't be a good idea. It's certainly, collaboration's always good, and specifically when you're the smallest kid on the block, as we are, certainly we can benefit from collaborating. So yes, definitely.
Thank you. Ms. Nealis?
The risk of sounding redundant, I've brought that up several times tonight. I think that it would be a great idea to pool our resources with both Bronxville and Eastchester, as well as the local colleges. I'm not really sure why we haven't reached out to them, but I know that if kids have a light schedule senior year, not really sure why we're not working on getting them some college credits locally. It would be a benefit to both our students and to the college. I don't really see a downside to doing that at all, and in both academics and sports. So I think it is something that definitely should be pursued a little bit more, with a little bit more fever than it is now.
Thank you. Mr. Lee?
Yeah, I agree. I don't see why that would be a bad idea at all. If they'll have us, if Eastchester and Bronxville will have us, I think that's a great idea. We've collaborated before with a couple of sports teams, a couple of athletic teams that we have going on now. It seems like it's a good marriage. It's a good fit for some of our kids. Also, it'll benefit them socially. You know, new teacher, new friends in different parts of our community, our extended community, that would be. Yeah, I can't see why that would be a bad idea.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Fiore?
I think this is a great idea. There's probably something in Bronxville schools Tuckahoe could use. There's probably something in Tuckahoe schools Eastchester could use. Maybe we could use teachers here. Maybe one of the teachers come here for something, or maybe one of the teachers go over there. Equipment. You got equipment that this school, maybe Bronxville has. We could use share service. But I think it's a very good idea, share services.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fiore. Mrs. Liscio?
Sure. As it was mentioned already, we do have quite a few mergers with Bronxville and Eastchester in our sports, track, lacrosse, swim, hockey. So it works. It works when we have something that we can offer, and when Eastchester and Bronxville have something that we need. What happens with academics where it gets tricky is scheduling and timing, and also space. Eastchester went through their own enrollment increase, and quite honestly, for them to take students into their school was a challenge. We did have a student last year who did take AP Physics because we did not offer it here, and it worked. And I do think that that is the uniqueness of Tuckahoe, where we can work with individual students and find their needs and work these out. Should we be doing it on a larger scale? We can try to do more, but I think where we could probably do it more is with staff rather than our children leaving or their children leaving and coming, because scheduling and transportation is an issue, even though we are such a small proximity. So when we want to start adding in electives or specializing, we just said if we wanted to add in another foreign language, it's very difficult to find a teacher who will only teach 1 or 2 sections. But maybe that's where we can explore, where we can look into our surrounding districts, where maybe we could share our staff and increase our academic offerings that way.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay,
Am I allowed to do a rebuttal?
I'm sorry?
It's not really a rebuttal, I just wanted
Oh, would you like 30 seconds? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, go right ahead.
No, I was just thinking, yes, it's hard with the transportation and all of those things, and thinking with all the technology that there is today, why we wouldn't take advantage of, so Eastchester might have a class, and why we wouldn't Skype in and have kids sit in a room and they're watching the class over there. I mean, I think that we need to move in that direction. My son has said he's been out of school and he has an iTutor person. I'm like, this is great. I would have loved for him to have his actual teacher. And I think if we move in the way of technology, we can probably offer kids a lot more.
Okay, and I'm sorry about that. Anybody else would like?
I think that part of the issue that we're not really pursuing this avenue is that people may not realize when things don't fit into their child's schedule that there may be a different solution. Sometimes you just take at face value that it doesn't fit into the schedule and you move on. So maybe we can raise awareness and put out there what is offered around. Listen, if there's a problem, there's always a solution to it. If your child wants to take X, Y, or Z, there's got to be a way that we can find X, Y, and Z to fit.
Okay, anybody? Okay, let's go to the next question. This is going to start with you, Mr. Casson. This is both from the community and also from the PTA. What are your thoughts on the district's program for special education students, gifted students, and English language learners, and how would you support those efforts?
Well, my thoughts are, as I said earlier, derived from some of the concerns that I've heard from quite a few parents in the district about there being some need for improvement in the special needs area. I think on paper we look great, you know, in terms of the 5-year plan and in terms of what programs we have available. I can tell you about a week ago, I sat down in preparation for this. I sat down with all the administrators from each school, and one of the subjects I brought up was special ed. And I can tell you from their perspective, they think things are going very, very well there. And that concerns me because that's a disconnect between what the administration seems to think and what the parents think. So I couldn't speak at this point to what specifically I'd like to see change, but I do know that we have a disconnect there, and I do know that that needs to be improved, and it needs to be more communication between the administration and the parents of special needs children so we can figure out what those issues are and where we can close the gap. As far as gifted children, you know, I would imagine, I know we have our high school, if we're speaking about the high school kids, and I know that's probably a broad response, but I know that our high school offers 10 AP classes, which is, I think, pretty high amongst high schools in Westchester. So that's good. So that means that there's some challenge there, and there's some ways for those kids to be challenged. So I don't really have any recommendations there.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Nealis.
As far as the special ed program goes in our district, we have a really strong special education PTA. They do a lot of great things and raise a lot of awareness in our district about a broad range of disabilities, from something like having attention deficit disorder to blindness and deafness. Kids get to experience these things. They're learning tolerance. They're learning about their peers and becoming more accepting. And I've seen that grow over the past few years significantly with the Building Bridges program. As far as the program goes for individual students, I can't really speak to that. I do know that there has been some disappointment among parents with some of the services that their children receive, and that probably is something that should be looked at, but that really isn't something that comes to the board directly. That's more something of an administrative standpoint. As far as a gifted program, I know that it's not necessarily a gifted program. We have AP classes in the high school. We added a new one for next year. I know that in Cottle, the teachers differentiate within their classrooms. There is no high kids and low kids. It's kids, and they're all working together to learn from each other. And that's what we need to continue to do. And unfortunately, I'm sorry, I can't speak to the ELL program at all. I really have had no experience with it, and have not really spoken to anyone that has a child in that program.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lee?
Yeah, the special education, unfortunately, needs to do, the parents and the community, the parents and the administrators need to communicate a little bit better. If the administration thinks that everything's going great and everything's up to par, and the parents of our special ed kids are not on the same page, then I think that's an issue that that needs to be rectified. For the gifted kids, unfortunately, we provide everything that we can provide for. Actually, fortunately, we provide everything that we can provide. 10 AP classes, 1 added for next year. I think that the gifted kids are progressing properly and preparing themselves for college. I think those AP classes are very important for them. for college credit. I think they get college credits for those AP classes. ELL, I have, again, like Danielle said, I have no experience with ELL. But the gifted kids and the special ed kids, I am aware of. I think that the AP classes are great, and unfortunately, the special ed kids, the parents, if they're not happy with the administrators, then I think that's a communication issue that we have to get rectified as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Fiore?
Unfortunately, I don't know anything in this area, so I can't answer anything on this.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Lucio?
Okay, I think this circles back a little bit to something I had said earlier regarding special education. Special education, it differs from in our enrichment program in that it's mandated, and it is our responsibility to provide services that our students need to have quality education. So these are mandates. There has not been one in 6 years board recommendation that's been brought to us that I have not supported for students in special education. In the beginning, it was quite overwhelming, because there are a lot of services. I did a lot of research on this, and I will never, ever, ever not raise my hand for something that is needed for a student in our district who has special needs. Now, when I brought it up earlier about having a director of special education, I do believe this is something we need to explore. I think that it deserves the attention for many reasons. The needs of our students in-house. We are also now attracting many students here that are paid tuition students. We have also, in the 6 years that I have been on the board, when I first got on the board, 27 of our students were sent out of district because we could not provide the services that they needed at a cost of anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 per student. We now, this year, next year's budget, only 9 students will be leaving our district. The most important thing I have to say about that is those children deserve to be in their home district regardless of the cost. So yes, where there is a cost savings, it's more important that they are here in-house with their siblings, their neighbors, and their friends going to school, and we are providing those services. There is a lot of work to be done here, and I think it is the time now that we can afford to give it the attention that I think it needs.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Tain?
Okay, I would have to agree a lot with Michelle, what she has said. I think it's a perfect opportunity with the 5-year plan coming up to sort of incorporate a lot of the goals and the needs in this area. I do agree, you do have to have somebody who is sort of in charge and will take charge as a director of special ed. And when I say special ed, I'm not just talking about the self-contained kids, I'm talking about kids with 504s as well. And I believe that also some of this staff, and maybe why there's a communication problem and why there seems, from what I'm hearing anyway, why there are problems is because maybe some of the general ed teachers aren't aware of some of these things. So I do believe there has to be a little bit more support for the teachers on that end, so maybe there will not be so many issues in regards to that. So I think perfect opportunity for when they're doing their 5-year plan to really look at this and what are the issues that people are having. I don't know them specifically, so I think it would be good to look at that. And also so that we can keep more kids here. I mean, I think it's the same with the AP courses. If we don't keep bringing in a lot of these AP courses, I think we are going to lose a lot of kids. Like, I think kids leave when they don't have enough to challenge them. So with those 2 areas, we want to keep our kids. They want to be able to stay in their same school with their friends and with their peers, but you have to give them what they need. In regards to the ELS program, I'm seeing a lot more kids come in that need that support, so that I think moving forward, we need to see what do they need to stay here, and that could also be something for discussion, in needs assessment and for the 5-year plan.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody want 30 seconds?
Could I just add something?
Sure thing.
I do believe that there should be a stronger emphasis right now in early intervention and our K-2 program for special ed. I don't want to misrepresent that our special education department is failing. It most certainly is not. The improvements that have been done in this department are enormous in the last 5 years. But if I were to go back and tell you all the things we have done and all the improvements we make, it's not going to make the mom that I spoke to the other day who was in tears, who was worried about their child. So I think that we need to look at what
Thank you, Mrs. Licio.
I'd like to speak to
Sure.
that, too. I do believe that early intervention is key, like Michelle said, and now that we do not have pre-K, I think that poses another problem. Kids aren't coming in until kindergarten, and while I know that the parents of the kids that would have been in pre-K are more than likely putting them in another program, it would really be great to have them here to let them see the student where they're going to be staying the rest of their school career and start right at the beginning of their education.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree with both Danielle and Michelle that definitely early intervention is the way to go, and we might see less and less kids in special ed, so I'm definitely for that.
Okay. Are we ready for the next question? Okay. This one is from the community. It was emailed in. It's also a question the PTA had. How do you think we can, Mrs. Nealis, this starts with you. How do you think we can better our board meetings? How can we improve communication with families regarding important things going on in the district?
Okay. Communication should be ongoing and direct and address all the stakeholders in the community. I was the community liaison this year, and I made sure that both the town and the village were aware of what was happening at our district meetings. The problem we faced this year was that the town and village meetings overlapped with our meetings. I think it's very important to have a physical presence at those meetings as well to report to the people who don't necessarily have kids and aren't watching the education channel. I've already spoken to Mayor Eklund about coordinating the meetings next year so that there will be a physical presence at those meetings. There were also several town hall style meetings this year, which brought a lot of people out, and I think that's the way to go. We like the more informal meetings and the informal settings. People tend to speak up more and create a dialogue that is a springboard for the Board of Education to make, some choices on. There have been several presentations and workshops outside of board meetings, which is really important, and we need to continue to build that dialogue with the community. We also need to keep the website maintained. We need to communicate through the PTA and the Tuckahoe School Foundation. We need to, we just sent out 2,200 mailings regarding the proposition and the vote. We need to continue to do all those things.
Mr. Lee?
I agree. Communication is the key for communication. Coddle Weekly, emails, learning portal, all of this is all avenues that the teachers and the school and the Board of Education could use to enlighten the neighborhood and the community about all the meetings and all the goings on. Yes, I think more communication from the Board of Education about the meetings through avenues like that, emails, the Coddle Weekly, get the voice out of the community. Like Danielle said, she's the community liaison, and everything I knew coming from Danielle. So, thank you,
Mr. Fiore?
Yes, communication. First, rotating meetings. They have a community meeting. They have one down in Tuckahoe. You can have a live meeting down there at Village Hall if you ever wanted to. But otherwise, even off camera, like the village board does, I think you guys do it here too. Like go to Chester Heights. Just go either to the firehouse or just go outside. People want to talk. There's no cameras. There's no microphones. There's nothing. Use of Twitter. You can use mailings, the website. Just keep it going all around. Basically, newsletters and emails. Keep everything up. Thank you.
Ms. Licio?
Okay, I think when we're saying better board meetings or more participation at board meetings, maybe is the question. I know before I ran for the board, I for quite a few years, attended board meetings, especially at budget time, because it's an interest. I strongly encourage a participatory government where people come and participate and express what their concerns are and their interests are, because we can't, I said it earlier, work in a bubble. We need to know what's going on and what people are thinking. Now, I know everyone's got a really busy life, but from what I understand, people are watching at home, and that's great. So people, I do believe, are tuned in just because they're not there, but we're not getting the feedback, and that's the difference. So I do think that people are watching for sure, but it would be great for us to hear from them. So maybe if we open up some type of an email where people could email in, maybe when we're having our meetings, someone from home has something they want to say, that might be a good way of reaching the community at home. As far as communication, since I've been on the board, we have advanced tremendously, yet there is always so much to do with communication. We started with the Blackboard Connect. We have a parent portal. We have teacher website. None of that existed 5-6 years ago. But I do think that it kind of came interestingly that what still works is mail. And we had a Bronxville Manor Civic Association meeting, and there was a mailing, and people showed up because they got something in the mail from us about this proposition, and it made them, when they got an email to come to the meeting for the Civic Association, they came. So I think there should be a way to get a database of community members that do not have children in school. It's not so difficult these days, and we should still be mailing, because there is no other way to reach community members who do not have children in the school.
Thank you. Mrs. Tate?
In regards to I guess, getting more people to come to the board meetings, I mean, I used to probably go to more than I do now. I mean, I believe that by having, yes, topics that interest people will get them to come out more. I think for this, at least this past year, the topic might have been pretty much the same the whole time, which is why maybe some people stopped coming. They didn't want to hear it anymore. I don't know. I know that last meeting that Michelle spoke about where they shared some things about students, I thought it was fantastic. I think if more things like that were shared, I think more people would come. They want to see what's going on with their kids in the schools. Danielle mentioned about scheduling. Yes, not having conflicts is a big thing, and not just even with like town hall and things like that, but even school events, because there has been times where there are actually meetings scheduled on school events, so obviously people are not going to be able to attend. The informal setting, I definitely agree with that as well. It's definitely makes people more comfortable to say what they are really feeling. And for communication, I mean, I think, yes, the mailing definitely does help. I mean, even though I have email, there's so many times I get those Coddle Weeklies and I don't look. But I have to say with the school bee, that I have, because that's almost like a direct email. When I see the weekly, I go, oh, there's too much information. But when I do see the school bee, so thank you to the PTA, that does sort of make me go, oh, let me look quick. So that's about it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Casson.
Yeah, as far as the board meetings and communication from the board meetings, I mean, I don't know how much more can really be done. I think to some extent the onus is on the folks to come out. Michelle did kind of steal my thunder a little bit about the idea of emailing in real-time questions to the board if you're watching from home. That's a thought that I had as well. Just getting, that's a way to maybe get some interaction with the folks that aren't there. But certainly, the board in the district, I think, communicates very, very well. At the end of the day, you can only bring the horse to water. You can't make the horse drink. So people have to reciprocate on the other side. I'll say that. But in terms of communication from the school in general, again, very good. I mean, the newsletters come fast and furious, a lot of good emails. Even the teachers are good about outreaching. So I really don't think that the school and the district and the board is falling short really in any way in terms of communicating on their end.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have a rebuttal? Okay, here's our next question. And this is going to start with you, Mr. Lee. This is from the community. What are your thoughts on the current and proposed budget for the school district? Where would you make budget cuts, and where would you not consider cutting?
Well, I think that because we aren't over budget, that's also a great thing, always. I don't think I would make budget cuts anywhere. I think that the only thing that we really need is to find more space. I think that the only thing that the school needs, actually, not the only thing we need more space, and I think we need more help with the special ed and the IEP and the 504. So if we could bring in more teachers, obviously we're going to have to bring in more teachers. If there's more space, then yes, unfortunately the budget's going to go up. But as for the budget that we have right now, I think that the board that we have now is doing an excellent job with the budget.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Fiore.
With the budget, the current board did a very good job on the budget. It's under the state cap. I wouldn't cut anything from it, from the budget. There's no need to cut. Try to find maybe more revenue somewhere out there. It's probably always good. But the way the budget is now, no, I won't cut anything. Thanks.
Ms. Licio.
Okay, this year's infamous 2% tax cap for Tuckahoe schools was 0.8% increase. We were able to maintain that. We did not go over the cap, and we actually have enhancements in our budget. So we did not cut from the budget. I'm very proud of this year's budget. And as we said earlier, it does align with our 5-year strategic plan. We are adding 6 new teachers, 4, I believe, are in special education. We have additions in staff development. We have increase in athletics offerings. We have increase in extracurricular activities, clubs. I believe, I see an old board member in the audience there, we have come so far because when I first before I came on the board, you would go to a board meeting and there would be a whole slew of, what are we going to cut this year? That has not happened. So I believe we're doing a very, very good job. I think the challenge is how do we spend that money that we spent and where do we put it and where should the emphasis be? Now, the budget comes as recommendations from the superintendent. I do serve on the budget committee, and some of the recommendations have been that there should be more of an outreach into the buildings, building principal, budget committees within the buildings, and those should be brought to the committee or brought to the board at meetings so that we can hear more of what is being asked for.
Thank you. Mrs. Tate?
Yeah, no, honestly, I don't have anything negative to say about the budget. I mean, they did do a great job with it by staying under the tax cap. I did have questions when I did look at the workshop, which I had brought up, because it was not clear as where things were going to be spent in regards to curriculum and things like that, but I think that's stuff that can be shifted. And I agree with Michelle in that they do need to reach out to the different buildings to make sure that all their needs are incorporated into that budget. Trying to think what else. The only other question that I did have with the budget, which was explained to me at the workshop, was when they were adding all these athletics, which are great, if the interest wasn't there. And I think it was explained to me, and Michelle can rebut later, but that if it wasn't, that then they wouldn't have to hire those people, because that was my concern. What if you added all these different types of teams, and then we don't have the students for it? But that was explained.
Thank you, Mrs. Tate. Mr. Casson?
Yeah, this budget's difficult to criticize, and I tried. I looked at it pretty hard, trying to find something I can kind of hang my hat on. But really, it's hard to criticize it because, as Michelle said, nothing was cut, things were increased, and we stayed below the very small 1%, 8% cap, so 0.8% cap. So really, I can't find any fault with it at all. It's a very good budget, and I have no concerns or issues with it.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Nealis?
It's hard to be last because you sound like a parrot, but this budget is a very strong one, and I again will say publicly, hats off to Lilu because hers again is a job that I would not want. She does an excellent job of explaining everything. She's meticulous with her note-taking and presentations. And again, to stay under the tax cap and be able to add programs, not even just maintain, is an amazing thing to be able to say in Westchester County in 2017. So there's no frivolous spending on the budget. We have a healthy fund balance for emergencies. I mean, right now, knock on wood, we're in a great position, and this is exactly where we want to be. I don't really think that there's any areas that I would say we need to stop spending money on this. I hope that we can keep providing for the student needs. It looks like we've done a good job this year in adding sports and programs, and next year we're already adding classes, so I'm hoping that we can maintain.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I have just one follow-up comment.
Sure, go right ahead.
Just for the audience, though, just so we're not painting an unrealistic rosy picture there, we stayed below the .8 increase, but we did have to go into the fund balance a little bit to do that. But that's fine, because due to the fiscal discipline, there's plenty in there, but we did have to tap into the fund balance in order to get below that 0.8%. So I just wanted to make that
I will
clarification.
add to that also. It actually, Peter's not a little bit, we went into our fund balance on $950,000.
Yeah.
And that money was there because there was years of, as I said in my opening, scrutinizing expenditures, negotiating contracts that are sustainable, and putting the money away for a day like this year, because under the tax cap at 0.8%, that's where the money had to come from. And I think it is true in terms of going down the road, this tax cap is not going away. And so we need to continue on that same fiscal responsibility, otherwise there will be cuts down the road.
Lucio. Okay, this next question comes from the community. We're going to start with you, Mr. Fiore. Does the Tuckahoe School District have an obligation to provide gym space above and beyond the requirements of school enrollment needs in order to support local pay-for-play leagues?
Tough question. It would be great for outside groups to come in. I'm thinking hard on this. I would say yes. Bring them in. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Lucio?
Okay, I think maybe this question has surfaced from the workshop from last week, where there was a discussion about the proposed capital project and this discussion about the gym. And I want to just be really clear. In Proposition 1, there is a renovation of the Cottle Gym at a cost of $3.8 million. And in Proposition 2, there is a freestanding gym at $4.8 million. Now, when the Facilities Committee first met, before any work was done, a needs assessment was done as to what are the needs of our district based on our enrollment. That assessment says that we need 3 instructional spaces at Cottle School. So a renovated gym at Cottle School gets us 3.3 instructional spaces. The proposed freestanding gym would leave Cottle School as it is, plus 3.3 additional spaces. We now have 5.3 stations. Now, for me, that's an overbuild, because we should not be doing more than what we need. And I think if we want to go out to our stakeholders and our tax base and ask them to pass a capital project that is needed primarily for classrooms, we should make sure that that's what we're getting. And it has to balance. So we have to have a balance of what we're asking for in order to make sure we get what we need. Now, the conversation about pay for play came up when the board was approached last week, that the gym space should be big enough so that leagues, outside leagues, would be able to use our space. This district, as I said last week, for years has been very generous to the leagues with any extra space we have. Play, field time, gym time. But I don't believe, and I don't believe that we have support for the community, that we should make that the forefront of our decision-making, and that it is the
Thank you
taxpayers'
very
burden
much, Mrs.
to
Lucio.
make sure we can house the pay-for-play leagues. Sorry.
Mrs.
Got
Tate.
it in.
Okay, you're not going to have
Mrs.
to cut
Tate.
me off, because basically, when you say, do I feel that, do we have an obligation to provide the gym space? I would have to say no. I don't think it's our obligation. If we have the space to give, then that's great, but I don't believe it's our obligation. I mean, our obligation is to provide the space that our students in Tuckahoe School Districts needs. That's what I feel our obligation is.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Casson?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think we do not have an obligation to use school district funds to accommodate pay-for-play or rec leagues, which I'm a fan of. Obviously, all of my kids have been involved in the rec leagues. They're fantastic. But I think as a board, we're not doing our duty, assuming that I was able to get onto the board, if we didn't guard against that. I think if we spend money for the good of the school on facilities, and then as a byproduct of that, those facilities can be used by the town, that's great. That's a bonus, and that's obviously a good thing. But I think to build something with school funds for the main purpose of facilitating the town rec programs is a very pernicious road to go down. It's not a good way to use those funds. And I know the argument sometimes is, well, taxpayers pay the school taxes, and a lot of them will have kids that go to the school. Yes, that's true, but that's what the money's for. And plus, the school district being good and strong is what helps your property values stay high and go up. So you still do benefit, albeit not as much as those who have kids in the school, but you still benefit. So I just think it's a really bad mindset to think about capital projects in that manner. Again, not opposed to using school facilities for the town when there's extra time and space to be used, but we shouldn't be using that money to build with that purpose first. It should be, secondary.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nealis.
Again, are we obligated? No. I just don't know why we would want to block something that is benefiting our own children. If we have the space, we should be using it for our kids. I know that Eastchester plays here. I drove by Sunday morning by Cottle. There was a mature men's baseball team or softball team out there having a game. I'm not sure how that works, but everybody is entitled to use that space. So I'm not really sure if we are able to provide for our children, because they are our children, for camps, for after-school sports, for in the morning before school, to give them something to do other than sitting in a cafeteria at lunch and watching a movie. We should do it if we're able to, and that's why the vote is going to be up to the people to decide. Again, that's not a decision for the board. You talk to 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different opinions. So my stand is I wouldn't want to block something that benefits our kids. It's not like we're bringing in kids from other places to use our fields. It's our children. Yes,
Thank you. Mr. Lee?
Yes. I have 4 children, 2 boys that played football for the youth program and 2 girls that are cheerleaders for the youth program, and I don't think that we have an obligation as a town to say that they can use the field. First and foremost, the taxpayers and the kids that go to the school, and the kids that are in our community, and the Tuckahoe community, the Tuckahoe School District, should benefit first and foremost from those gyms and the fields. Like Mr. Casson said, if anything else comes from the town, then that's a bonus that the kids, from the surrounding community, Eastchester and Bronxville could benefit also. But first and foremost, the kids in Tuckahoe, they should be able to benefit from this. So no, I don't believe we have any obligation to any of the pay-for-play leagues, not at all.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Does anybody have a rebuttal?
Can I just add to that? I just want to clarify. All of the rec leagues that use our facility do not pay to use our facility. So if that's TYA, EBIL, Eastchester Youth Soccer, the Tuckahoe Youth Football Program. Danielle mentioned that there was an older league. We do give out permits for pay, so for other leagues, and they do pay revenue to use that. So, but that is not the priority of our school. It is the excess space that we have, and I think the question asked is, should it be our obligation?
Thank you,
And the
Mrs.
answer is no.
Lucio. Thank you.
Yeah, can I make another comment too about this?
You certainly may.
Just a comment about what Danielle said too about our kids using it and understanding the whole town benefiting from it, which I understand. But I just wanted to just make the point that we got to remember when it comes to money and it comes to space and it comes to time, it's a zero-sum game. Every dollar we spend on something, every square footage we put towards something is something we can't put it towards something else. So I just think it's just a little bit dangerous to think about putting
Thank you, Mr.
resources.
Casson.
Okay, fine.
Anybody else?
No, I just wanted to clarify in case I wasn't clear. I don't think it's our obligation, but I am okay with programs coming in like Eastchester Soccer and things like that and using what we have, but not our obligation to build something so that we can attract more people.
I'd like to also have people consider that while people are using our facilities, we're also using Eastchester facilities, and we don't want to put a stop to that, and we don't want to ruin that relationship. So we need to do the best we can with what we have, with the scheduling, and make sure that we can try and accommodate if we're able to. There's no reason not to. The only one that gets hurt in the end is the kids. So if we can accommodate, we should be trying to do that.
Okay.
I have
Go
just
ahead.
one last thing. I do feel sometimes when we bring in some of these organizations I've seen from Jersey and all these other different places and these men's leagues, I would like to see it more used by kids.
Okay. Does anybody want a second comment?
I do.
Go ahead.
So just real quick, in terms of the idea of, actually, I just lost my train of thought. You know what, forget it. I'll come
Okay.
back to it later. Sorry.
Yeah,
It's getting long
I
here.
will agree with Cynthia's comment. It's that we should not overbuild for that purpose. And if we're going to overbuild something, I don't think it should be a gym. We should be overbuilding in our classrooms. We should be having the most updated technology. We should not be overbuilding in a gym
Right.
space that our needs assessment has said that we don't need. That's not our obligation for excess space to be used that way. There's a lot of ways to spend money, and I don't think that should be our
Okay.
priority.
Thank you.
I actually got my
no more,
thought
no
back.
more comments for this
I
question.
remember what I wanted to say. Just really quick. Just in terms of the point that was made about leaving it up to the community for a vote. I think that's fine. However, I think as a board, the board has an obligation to put forth ideas that make sense for the school district. Because if you put forth an idea to the town, I think the town assumes that you're asking for it because the school needs it. So that's just something to be careful about. If you put forth the idea of a gym, it's going to be interpreted by the community that this is needed by the school. That's what the board should be doing. So that was the point I wanted
Thank
to
you.
make.
No, I have to offer each one of you another comment, if you want them. Okay, good. So we have one last question. This question, we had multiple versions of the same question, so we've kind of mishmashed them all together. So I'm going to ask you this question. Generally describe, we're going to start with you, Mr. Chair. We're going to start with you, Ms. Lucio. Generally describe your experience, skills, and background that make you the correct choice for the Board of Ed. What is your specific motivation for running? And I have a few more little comments that go in there. Do you think you have the time to properly give to this commitment? And are you prepared to meet with all the various members of the community?
I'm sorry, what was the last one?
Are you prepared to meet with all the various members of the community?
Okay, well, I think in my opening, I really outlined what I believe my skill set is. Actually, having served on the board for 6 years, in terms of finance, budgeting, making difficult decisions, I think I have exercised that well. So I think really my experience speaks for itself in that way. My specific motivation for running for the board is the same answer I just gave, my experience. there is definitely going to be a lack of experience on this board moving forward. There are 2 board members that will remain that only have 1 year of experience, and there will be 3 open seats. So I believe that someone needs to be here that has the history, the know-how. How did we get to where we are now is still a very important factor in the decisions we make when we go forward. And I think I bring that to the table. The question about time, everyone's time is very valuable, but I don't think you will find one person who says, I have never given my time. I am the one who has said, let's meet again, let's have another meeting. We need to talk about it more. We need to have another meeting. I am all for giving my time. It's probably one of the reasons why I'm also running. I will have 3 children in college next year. Probably should get a second paying job, but I would rather give my time here. And I think there's a lot of work to still be done, and I think that I have the skill set to get it done.
Thank you, Mrs. Tate.
Okay, I went over some of my experience already in education. I believe as an administrator, it has allowed me to have a global view, which I think would serve myself well if I was on the board, and the ability to make decisions. I do it every day. I deal with budget also every day. We have to do our own budgets in our school. So I believe I've tackled that already. My motivation for running, I guess for years I've tried to be involved with everything, and if I'm not happy with something, I might choose someone's ear about it, whatever. So my motivation for running is I can't be unhappy with something and not be willing to try to do something about it. So I feel like that is what I would like to do. I feel like this is an extension of also my past 30 years in education. Time commitment, that for me probably was the biggest challenge. I mean, my kids are still young. It will take a lot of time, but I am committed to it because it in turn is for them as well. My husband was the one who actually pushed me to run when I said I wouldn't because of the kids. He told me it's something that you need to do because he's heard me talk about it. So I will, when I commit to something, I will give my 100%. Meeting with various members of the community, I think that's a great thing. It's how we learn what everybody's needs and wants are out there. So that would be something that I think would be, I'd be up for that challenge.
Mr. Casson?
Thank you. In terms of skills and background, I don't have any direct skills or background with regards to education. I'll be upfront about that. But I actually think that's, in some respects, a good thing for a board. I think, a school district hires professionals and administrators to bring that professional expertise into the fold. I think it's good for the board to have some folks on it that are from the outside that are not educational professionals, but do have an insight into the private sector or the public sector beyond school and have other life experiences to bring. I do think it's good to have some educators on the board, certainly, but I think it's good to have some non-educators too to get that different perspective. In terms of correlation between what I do for a living and what I can bring to the table here, I'm an analytical guy. I analyze things and I dig down deep into details, and I think that's a good thing for a board member. I think I have good judgment. I exercise good judgment all the time at work, and I think that can translate here, and integrity and speaking and dealing with people. So those are sort of the raw skills that I think I bring to this. In terms of motivation, I mean, my main motivation is just understanding how important this next board is going to be, this next 3 years of board decisions, particularly with the capital improvement project. A board's always important. There's always important decisions to be made. But particularly this next 2 to 3 years, with all that's going to be going on around here in terms of the capital improvement, is what motivated me to get involved. I didn't want to be standing on the sidelines and then complaining about it later. So as far as time, yes, time's tough. Very little time. Everybody has very little time. But when you think about prioritization and what's most important, our kids, our community, our property, if you look at it in terms of priority, I have to find the time, and I will find the time. And preparing to meet people, of course, is something I'm willing to do. I already started doing it in preparation for this. I've already gone around and started to meet a lot of people to get their feedback, so that's not an issue for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Nealis?
Regarding my background, my years in education, this kind of comes natural to me. I enjoy this. This isn't a burden to me. I served on the PTA, and I'm currently serving on the executive board of the PTA as well as being a member of the Board of Education. So anybody that knows me knows that I am committed to our kids in our community. I'm chairing one of the largest committees that the PTA offers currently. So talk about a time crunch. I'm everywhere all the time and just never home. I do think it is my duty to serve the community. It is a privilege to be a spokesperson for all the different areas of our town. I need for us to do better as a district. I want us to succeed and excel because that has a direct impact on my home value and my children's education. And that's what should be first and foremost is our home values and our kids. And that's why I'm here. I'm a detail-oriented person, so juggling all of this is not a problem for me. Plus, I don't really sleep, so I can read everything I need to read all night long. Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
I don't think any of us sleep at night. My experience, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of experience, but by the same token, Michelle had to start somewhere. She's been on the board for 6 years, and I think she did a great job. Danielle is on the board for a year, and I think she's doing a great job. So everybody's got to start somewhere. I've been a union member for 21 years with CWA Local 1101, so I am experienced in dealing with contracts and negotiation. Time. No, and I don't think anybody has enough time. I don't think anybody has enough time to do anything, but unfortunately, you know, you got to make your own time. You got to, if it's for our kids, it's for our houses, it's for the taxes, the town. It's for our kids. Basically, at the end of the day, it's for our kids. So you have to make the time. You have to be there to do your part. You know, to make the time to do your part on behalf of your kids and on behalf of your family. What was the other part of that section? Oh, my motivation. My motivation is basically the same. I didn't want to be the guy standing on the sidelines and complain in 10 years about what we did and what we didn't do at this time. You know, this is a crucial time. We're working on trying to secure a bond, whether it's proposal 1 or proposal 2, and I didn't want to be the guy standing on the sideline to let something like that go by. So. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shapiro.
Okay. The experience-wise, I was never a board member. With my 20 years experience in Lakeland schools, mostly as custodian, was never in the teaching experience or anywhere there. To bring back to the board, from what I know, to bring from one district to another. And the background I have is for what I said in the beginning, all the activities that I do, I could bring back to them. My motivation is I want to serve. I want to serve the people. I want to do the best job that I can. And I always wanted to serve. I just came from an election a few months ago. I just kept on going. I still want to serve. Time, I got plenty of time. I don't have any children, so I got plenty of nighttime. Meet with the community. I like to meet people. You know, I'll meet with anybody. So hopefully. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Would you like a little rebuttal there?
Yes, I would. I'm sorry, I missed one part. The people,
Okay.
meeting the people.
Yes.
I don't. Anybody who knows me knows I don't have a problem going around and meeting the people. I am a people person. I like to make people happy, and the people in the community know who I am, and they hear my voice. I know about that at various games and sporting events. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
I just wanted to sort of say what you had said. I think it is important to have varied groups of people on the board that have different skill sets. I think it makes up for a very good board.
Okay.
I don't think I answered also about meeting various members of the community. I think what we need to be doing is more outreach, because as we said earlier, instead of having a meeting, inviting people to come, as a matter of fact, we had a meeting this morning for a budget, just a budget overview, 9 o'clock this morning here, and nobody came. And while I was here thinking, okay, nobody came, maybe we could have went to the senior center or somewhere where there were people who would want to hear from us. So I think we should do a better job of getting out into the community. It worked very well a few months ago when Chester Heights Civic Association invited board members there to present on the capital project. Their meeting was already existing, and we were guests at their
Thank you
meeting,
very
and that worked
much.
very well.
Okay, so now it's time for your closing statements. We're going to go in the reverse order of our opening statements, so we're going to start with you, Mr. Lee. Closing statements are 1 minute. There's no rebuttal.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the community for coming out tonight and for all the questions that they asked. Very important. I'd like to thank the people that are up here. A lot of insightful answers. As I said, I'm a people person. I don't want to be on the sidelines anymore. I want to be behind the scenes. I want to see if there's any way I could help rather than be complaining about it in 2 or 3 years from now. Come September, I'll have 2 children in high school, 1 child in middle school, and 1 child in Cottle Elementary School. So I think I run the gamut of what's expected of a board member. I could help out in all aspects for the children of all 3 different schools that we have. And if you vote for me, I'll do my best to put that forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Nealis.
Again, I would like to thank everybody for their consideration. Obtaining a 3-year term is something I would very much look forward to. I want to be able to serve the district and represent all the constituents of our community. Tuckahoe does great things for kids. We have kids going to so many wonderful colleges and universities. I want to be a part of the movement to up the ante a little bit. I want to expect a little bit more from everybody each year. I want us to rise up and be committed to giving our children the education that you probably all moved to this community for. I know that was the sole consideration in our decision-making process to move here. I'm more than qualified for this role, and more than that, I'm willing to put in the time to do it right. I have the full support of my family, which is critical to the success of this job because there are a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that no one really knows about. I'm a person who's ready to face the challenges in our school district head on and make sure that everyone is represented. I have proven myself to be someone who has the best interests of the global community in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Casson?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who showed up. Thank you to the moderators. You guys did a great job. And thank you to my fellow candidates who are very impressive and are inspiring, quite frankly. And just to say that I just urge everybody to come out and vote, regardless of who you vote for. This is about a participation, and I can tell you, regardless of how this turns out for me, it's gotten me more involved and more educated, and I'm grateful for that. I hope to be able to continue on that road as a board member. I think I will do a good job. I think I have the judgment and the life experience to do that. So hopefully it'll give me a chance, but either way, please get involved and come out and vote. Thank you.
Mrs. Tate?
I would like to thank everyone also for such great questions, and I hope through all the questions you were able to get to know me a little better and see that I do have something to offer for the board. So I hope you will hear that. I know my daughter told me last night, she said, "Mom, if you believe in what you say, then people will believe in you." So I hope you believed in everything that I say, because that makes it a little bit easier. I want to be the voice of the community, and at the center of it all, I am for kids. The first and foremost is my most important thing. So if you walk away with anything, know that's what it is. If I don't get elected, I will still always be that involved to make sure our kids get what they need. And like Mr. Casson said, come out and vote, no matter who you vote for. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Licio?
Okay, in closing, I also wanted to thank the PTA for sponsoring tonight's forum, for all of you that have attended tonight and everyone who's watching at home in order to make an informed decision. I also did want to thank the fellow board candidates here tonight for participating and your willingness to be here. The most important characteristic that separates me from the other candidates is my experience, and it's that experience that we're going to need to face the challenges ahead. Our success is apparent in our numbers. Our enrollment is up, taxes have stabilized, home values have increased. Tuckahoe Schools, which was once a little-known secret, has earned its well-overdue recognition. While our success has created new challenges, I believe I have the skill set and experience to see our district through those challenges, including a capital bond project that's so urgently needed. I believe my continued presence on the board will help to ensure we present a plan to this community that I believe all stakeholders will support, and one that provides a safe learning environment for all students to thrive.
Thank you, Mrs. Lucio.
I just want to say, I'm sorry. It has really been a privilege and an honor to serve on this board, and I respectfully ask for your vote on May 16th.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fiore.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank the PTA for having this forum tonight and the residents out there for participating. As you heard from me, I have a lot to learn. And I want to thank all the candidates here. Good luck. And make sure everybody come out to vote. Tell your friends, neighbors. Make sure you tell everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. This wraps up your candidate forum.
Thanks.
Thank you for all your questions. Mrs. Halloran's going to say a few words.
Thank you, candidates, for coming tonight. It was a pleasure to hear from all of you. Thank you to the community for sending in your questions. This program will be aired on our cable channels over the next few days. Please encourage community members who are not here tonight to watch and become informed voters. Please remember to vote on May 16th. Thank you, good night, and good luck.
Except when you